So are you saying your vagina cream is anti-aging and you use that around your eyes?
Absolutely.
Today we have Dr. Anna Cabeca, and she is the OBGYN and the author of Hormone Fix, Keto Green, and I just received this in the mail, Menopause. This is a really amazing title. I met Dr. Anna in Bali. She was a wonderful speaker. I learned so much. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Anna.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so that book, MenuPause, it's one of my favorites. So it's the third book I wrote, and it's all color. So color recipes and menus. So like there are pauses, there is magic in the pauses of our life. So hence MenuPause, a little spin on menopause. It's important. We have to pause certain things, and that includes with certain ingredients. So in MenuPause, there's five different 6-day menu plans that each pause something to help with hormone balance. And I also navigated through studying cultures around the world and food as medicine in these cultures to help women midlife and beyond with hormone optimization. So I incorporated some of those ingredients, those recipes, and those stories into the book as well. So, but here I am now as a triple board certified OBGYN, and I have traveled the world speaking, lecturing, sharing information, and really grateful and humbled by the experience because who I am now is not who I always was. And at 39 years old, I was over 240 pounds. I was struggling with, PCOS, hormone imbalance, and then post-traumatically diagnosed with infertility and then early menopause at 39 years old and told I would never be able to have another child of my own again. And that was devastation upon devastation. And that way back in 2006, led me to take a sabbatical from my medical practice in Southeast Georgia, where I had a med spa, Golden Isles Medical Spa, and I had my medical practice as an OBGYN. I took a sabbatical and traveled around the world, really looking for answers, or let's just say with the hand of God, the answers found me in so many ways. And as a result of that journey, with the grace of God, not only reversed early menopause, but naturally conceived the child I was told I would never be able to have when I was 41 years old. So now I'm in my 60th year and I've got a teenager at home and life is full on. But to look back at where I was then, and that's why Bali was so important because Bali was one of those places on my healing journey way back in 2006, 2007.
Wow, what a story. Perimenopause, menopause, premenopause, it's a little bit sometimes confusing. Could you explain us these words? Yeah.
So, and when it comes to these definitions, it's a little bit crazy. The terminology is a little bit crazy too. Menopause is technically the 12 months without a period. So 12 months and a day without a period, that is now you have experienced menopause. Perimenopause is used to be the term up to that point, 10 to 15 years, or when they're symptomatic. Perimenopause is still not well defined. So use your imagination on that one, folks. And then postmenopause is that day after the 12 months and one day that you haven't had a period. That's postmenopause. But what happens to people like me who go for over a year without a cycle and then start having regular normal periods again? What do you call that person? Call that, person a miracle. But that's the power of the body. The terminology is terrible. So when we look at this, don't get hung up on the terminology. Understand, first of all, menopause isn't a disease and it's not something that has to be treated. Your body needs to be empowered like any stage of life, any stage of life. If you have thyroid imbalances, you treat the thyroid. If you have hormone imbalances, you treat the hormones. You treat the underlying issues for those imbalances, and that's where you get great results. And not just the treatment part, it's a really big thing. And this is Jen, this is why I've been attracted to you and your products. You're like, okay, foundational. Let's get rid of the things that are affecting and messing up our body's natural signals and processes. That's key. It's often about less, not more.
Wow, less, not more. I love what you said that menopause is not a disease. And I think most of us, we think that it is. Okay, so let's say someone comes to you and says, Dr. Anna, my belly feels inflamed. I'm getting weight. And she's 45, kind of there. What do you start with?
So first thing I start with is my Keto Green approach. So in my books, and you had held them up, the Hormone Fix, that's foundational. Keto Green 16, that is core. And actually, every beginning of every new year, we do a Keto Green 16 challenge. So we'll definitely give your audience that link. But that is key fundamental medicinal menus, not just okay, here, follow this diet plan. No, the original physicians were the chefs to the king. I mean, they prepared the king's food. This goes back to the Ottoman Empire. And if we think about that, like food is medicine, has to be our first medicine, but there's a combination and art and a science to food as medicine. So I've really spent my life studying this and incorporated these medicinal menus. And in my Keto Green 16 book, those are the simplest medicinal menus that I could do with we work you into 16 hours of intermittent fasting, no snacking, want you to break fast by 10 a.m. And that's one of the first things you can do, because when you start getting that waist gain, you think, okay, distension, imbalance, like I think, gut microbial imbalance, digestive issues. And, while that's normal as we age, that is not optimal. So we have to address these issues because, a good portion of our hormones and neurotransmitters are metabolized and processed in the GI tract. So we've got to look at the gut as ground zero for our health, for our hormone balance, for our longevity, for our immunity. All these aspects are key to optimizing our health.
Estrogen dominance is massive buzzword. Most women have no idea what it actually means. Cannot we talk a little bit about estrogen and maybe also about bioidentical hormone therapy? Because a lot of doctors can push, hormone replacement therapy. Where are you personally at that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones, right? It does take more than hormones to fix our hormones. That's why I wrote my first book, The Hormone Fix, to really address the many spokes on the wheel, so to speak. Yes, to address the many issues, the hormone disruptors, the stress factor, so many nutrition, nutrients, all of the detoxification, all those key aspects. It's really important because I have been a hormone expert, as an OBGYN, but also because I was a scientist and a researcher while I was in residency at Emory University on the HERS trial. That was the hormone replacement and cardiovascular risk trial that was done way back in the early 90s, late 80s. And so I was a researcher on one of those arms. And then when the Women's Health Initiative study came out in 2002, I didn't pull my patients off of hormones. I explained, well, here's the best way that we can do it. This is what the science really shows. This is what the study really shows, plus all the other data and research that we've had around that. So I continued and kept my patients on bioidentical hormones, but always in the healthy context. Like if you're just driving through your meals every day, you're essentially a waste dump of toxins, that's not first line therapy for you. No way, right? We have to address the underlying issues that's causing the hormone imbalance. But using bioidentical hormones is like prescribing thyroid hormone when you need it or insulin when you need it. There's no age limit and there's a right way and a wrong way.
Next question. In your experience, what's one lifestyle shift, something very simple that gives women the fastest relief during menopause that maybe is overlooked?
Yeah, the intermittent fasting piece. I think that and breaking fast by 10 a.m. So like maybe you're eating 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So a good, 13 to 16 hour intermittent fasting is really powerful. And that's one of the things. And for me, that's part of the Keto Green method that I teach. And again, there's a right way to intermittent fast and a wrong way. I know because of my genetics, these powerful genetics that I have. If I fast too long, I form a lot of uric acid and I get into a metabolic stall and actually gain weight. So there's, paying attention to that's really important. Plus, if, fasting too long in the morning, that you miss the metabolic genes that are most active from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. So, you don't get the benefit of the nutrients you're eating, the energy that it can produce if you wait too long to break your fast. So it's important aspects like the nuances of the Keto Green 16 method.
Wow. So what I'm hearing right now, you are not supporting a long fasting, like 2, 3 days. Some people do, women especially, we're not supposed to do that, right?
Well, I periodically can do it. Like maybe you do it once a season,
Okay.
but like every week it can be too much. And again, it depends on your adrenals. It depends on your metabolic status. And, the epigenetics too. For some, we form a lot of uric acid. And Dr. David Perlmutter's book, Drop Acid, is a great insight into this molecule, uric acid, that traditionally has been associated with gout, but at normal levels, uric acid levels above 5 in women, is associated with, a decrease in metabolic health, increase in cardiometabolic disease, and increase in weight gain. So paying attention to that, and that can be caused by too much fasting. It can be caused by too much protein. So we need to pay attention to that. We get a lot of trends in health and wellness and our influencer marketplace. We really need to say, okay, trust what's working for you and what's not working for you. If I'm here saying, okay, do it this way, and it's not working for you, there's another next right step that you have to take.
Wow. Yeah. And everybody is so absolutely different. What works for one, I believe also it doesn't always work for everyone else.
That's absolutely true. Because I have fasted as long as 7 days and gained weight. So, I mean,
Oh,
like
wow.
what was happening? I had really high uric acid at the time because I was doing very much for MenuPause. I have a 6-day plan that's carnivore. And so I'd been working on that carnivore, maybe below 10 grams of carbs a day, if any, and forming a lot of uric acid. I didn't know it. And then I was like, God, what's going on? I'm gaining weight. I need to fast. And then, I didn't lose. Maybe I lost 3 pounds during that 7-day water fast. So I had to figure out what was going on. And that's where I really dug into David Perlmutter's work and research on uric acid. I was like, aha, that makes sense. And that makes sense why my big toe's hurting when I'm doing chaturanga and yoga. I'm like feeling, always my big toe was actually pre-gout diagnosis because
Wow.
of so much uric acid. So paying attention to this is all that I say, put your Nancy Drew detective hat on. You got to figure out what's going on with you. And that's a really important piece to this entire understanding that we are the CEO of our body, right?
Yeah.
We are the chief medical officer of our body, of us. And our body is not just in and of itself. It's an energetic body, not just a physical body. So mind, body, spirit, energy, all of these aspects have to incorporate to have health, to have optimal health.
Awareness. Yeah, you have to feel it. I do agree with that. How is your day-to-day nutrition right now? Tell us about your morning routine. What do you eat? What time you stop eating? How long do you usually fast?
So my ideal day, I break fast by 10 a.m. with a keto green shake. And so that's using one of my keto green proteins that have 0 grams of sugar,
I love that.
adding a scoop of my adaptogenic blend called Mighty Maca. So it's adaptogenic. I'll add a tablespoon of phosphatidylcholine, which is important for cell membrane health. And then I will add some handful of sprouts. Maybe I have some ginger in the fridge or some cocoa powder. So different things like that to add. And probably will add some creatine to it as well and collagen peptides to really boost up the protein content of the shake. So typically that's the best start I have of the day. But when I wake up in the morning, I do drink a scoop of my Mighty Maca and water. Now it's cold here, so I make it into a hot tea. I'll have, a hydrate first thing when I have a tall bottle of water by my bedside. So I drink water as soon as I wake up to start rehydrating. Then I'll have my shot of Mighty Maca, and then I'll have my cup of coffee. And then, like, for example, trying to think, what did we have last night? So I'd stir fried beef with onions. So thinking, and handful of sprouts in it with some pine nuts. Very simple dinner with a handful of greens on the side and some fermented food. So typically adding a little bit of sauerkraut or kimchi, but I like all the different sauerkrauts you can get now. And that adds a little bit of fermentation. So that's pretty typical. I think one of the biggest things I've learned throughout the years is governing my mindset, is shifting to being positive in the present moment, and shifting my mindset is probably the most important health habit that I've created over the years.
Wow, I love that. What time is the latest that you eat dinner?
Yeah, typically the latest is 6 or 7. We try to eat by 6, but one of my youngest, we've got the horses and we go to the ranch, and sometimes it's later in the evening that we're all home to eat. So that can be challenging, especially for those that, you've got kids, they're in sports, they're in activities, and you're eating later, but really trying to keep it before 6 or 7 p.m.
What happens when you eat late? Some people
Oh,
eat
yeah.
and 12,
No.
What happened?
So we know that the same amount, like if you eat a meal at 5 p.m., that same meal at 7 p.m., you will produce 50 to 70% more insulin for that later meal. So in other words, you have more insulin produced in that later meal, meaning that you're putting into storage mode the glucose from that meal, the carbs from that meal, the energy store from that meal, you're storing it. So the later you eat, the more you're storing. The earlier you eat, the more you're using. So it's not just the meal, it's the timing of the meals.
Tell me a little bit about acne. What are your thoughts, ladies, 40s, 50s, they started having acne. I have those kind of clients come and like,
Yeah.
I had acne in my life. I turned 45. Suddenly I woke up one day with a lot of acne. Why? What's happening?
You have to heal the gut. So, you think toxicity, there's an imbalance that, a shift in our hormones as we age. And so with the decline in progesterone, which declines from age 35 to 50 by 75%, that's a huge decline. Like you're going to feel that. And you mentioned estrogen dominance before. It's more during this time, it's progesterone insufficiency, which leads to that shift in ratio between progesterone and estrogen that we feel. And if you add in that hormone disruptors or estrogen mimickers from cosmetics, skincare, food, just name it, there's that increase in load. And then when I see clients with acne in midlife, that is always a red flag. Okay, we got to heal your gut. We've got to do a hormone detox and a cleanse. And so, that's really important to establish that. And testosterone, as we age, especially in our 60s, 70s, becomes more of a dominant hormone because of the decline in estrogen and progesterone during that time. So you have that shift. So you want to make sure you're metabolizing that testosterone down healthy pathways.
Most of the OBGYN, they just gonna prescribe like birth control. And I have so many friends are on birth control just because they have acne, not because they even, some of them, they don't even have a boyfriend. They don't need that. So this is why I love your work, because you always address a root cause. What's really actually underneath of that. Skin is just presentation. I'm in the skincare business. Skin is just presentation. Something is deeper, not just skin, not just take a birth control pill and that's all. Yeah, it might gonna go away, but then most of them, when they stop, it actually gets even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I see clients, have been on antibiotics for years, birth control for years for that. And they're like, okay, I don't want to be on this anymore. And then they get rebound acne because their gut's so defenseless. And so you have to slowly rebuild their gut lining, the mucosa. I would say healthy digestion for a glowing complexion, key. And so, you have to rebuild this because that, the antibiotics, the birth control pills aren't the answer, aren't the solution. Your body's intelligent. You have to address the underlying issues. What's the inflammatory foods you're eating? What's the, what else is going on here? Is there parasites that we need to look at? Is there an overgrowth in yeast, candida, or other non-beneficial bacteria? Address those issues because especially if you've been on birth control pills and antibiotics for a long time, you got a lot of the bad guys there.
Your skin looks really great. What do you think as a doctor, hormone specialist, how important is to have clean, non-toxic skincare and overall, like anything that we touch, how important and what do you actually recommend?
Yeah, the products we use have to be clean enough to eat. To be honest, they really do. And I think about that. And first of all, I was grateful to meet you because you gave me your sun care, your tinted sunscreen. And I was like, you're like, well, what sunscreen do you use? I'm like, I don't use sunscreen because they're all toxic or there's very few that are non-toxic. And they're like, oh my gosh, you got to use this. And now, because I met you, I use your Dermaroller once a week, using your cleanser, your scrub, and using your sunscreen. So I love simplicity, and that's really key. I use another makeup line by Nibu Naturals that are just like astaxanthin, which is good. It's food for your skin. Or, it has natural colors in it too for cosmetic effect. And so that's the outside in. But my skin is unhealthy if my diet's unhealthy. So the key thing is healthy nutrients, healthy nourishment from the inside out. And when I start to have my rosacea breakout, when I start to see that, I know I've got to get really strict with my nutrition plan, do another cleanse. And often I'll have my clients, I'll do keto green shake and bone broth and just do even 1 to 3 days of just that to really help the GI tract. And of course, you've got to do things like colonics. Those so much healthy intestines, right? Healthy digestion for a glowing complexion. But when we have healthy intestines, we have pretty skin. And you talked about skincare. So also Jolva, I use that right around my eyes too. So
What? Really? Okay, tell us
yeah.
about Jova. I tried actually, and I love it.
Thank you. Yeah. So Julva is my cream for the vulva. So clitoris to anus, the most important real estate, if you ask me, as a gynecologist. But because the ingredients, the DHEA and the alpine rose plant stem cells and the emollients in there really help get into the tissue. And it turns back the hands of time. But the way the ingredients work together, they help restore the natural glandular secretions. DHEA is well known for doing that. And so using it, if you have, especially we get older, we have dry eyes, and if you're experiencing that, like, don't wait. Like, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. These glands in our eyelids, lower lid and upper lid, are hormone sensitive. So using the Julva, and I have a 30-day tube of Julva, and it has a beautiful metallic applicator. And you
Wow.
just massage it in upper and lower lids. And hearing back from my lady is like, oh my gosh, this is so good for really helping condition of the
Are you
tissue around the eyes, but also feeling better.
So are you saying your vagina cream is anti-aging and you use that around your eyes?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's cool. Good to know.
It's working the same way, and that's why I also have a lip formula, because the fine lines and wrinkles of our lips, like I had lip lines when I was in my 30s. I'm like in my 60th year now. So the lip lines, I don't want lipstick bleeds, and I will choose my poisons here, Jen. I'm like, I love my red lipstick. So I can't have lipstick line bleed. So the Julva helps with that too.
Can we use Julva every single day? Is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, I'll be doing that. And can you use that during intercourse? Like,
Yep, perfectly safe for a male partner. Yeah, where estrogen, you don't want if you have a male partner, you don't want him to get extra estrogen, usually. But the DHEA is perfectly fine. They can use 10 times as much.
if you could create a woman 40 plus panel, the labs every woman should test early, what will be on it and why?
So the panel I would create is really it's a comprehensive hormone panel. I actually have, when I see clients for the first time, I do a very comprehensive hormone panel. And granted, it's an expensive panel, but there are a few key things that are really important to at least get baselines of. And when I think of this, I always look at, 4 key tests, and that is vitamin D, 25 hydroxy. We want to look at that form of vitamin D. We want to look at a HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein. And we want to look at a hemoglobin A1C, a marker of insulin resistance, and DHEAS. So I always say the 3 areas that I address in my clients are adrenal dysfunction, inflammation, and hormone imbalance. These 4 markers give us a really important look. And then we also want a complete thyroid panel, including thyroid antibodies, and a complete hormone panel, including FSH, and including free hormone levels, like, for example, free testosterone. And if we're still cycling, the timing of those tests are really important. So I talk about it in my book, The Hormone Fix, too.
Okay, so I'm turning 40 in a couple of months and I want to do those tests. I think it's important. Last question. What is your most rewarding to you as a doctor story from your patient that you ever had that you will be like, oh my God, I'm so proud. She achieved that. She changed. I remember in Bali, you shared this amazing story of your patient. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have so many. Right now, I'm just thinking of an amazing lady that I have in my practice who's 70s, and she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer over 20 years ago. And she, was like struggling post breast cancer diagnosis, not giving any hormones, feeling like she was going to die. And she just, did her research. She advocated for herself. She started bioidentical hormone for, therapies at a gentle, correct way. She started that recently. So in her late 60s, she started her on that. I manage her for that. And also the other nutrients and supplementation and healing. She's very proactive in her health, seeing how she does, modifying, doing less, not more, focusing on healing her trauma in the 70s. And she's healing her trauma from young relationships. And that's a person that inspires me, that she's advocating for herself and taking one next right step, and never too old. And she's incredible, sharp, intelligent, active, loves her husband of 50 years, all of those things. And I love seeing clients like this because they are my role models. You know, every day we have a choice. Are we going towards health or disease? And it's up to us to make the step one step at a time towards health and put our Nancy Drew detective hats on and keep advocating for ourselves. I love that.
I love it. It must be rewarding to see your patients transform their life, especially when they lost the hope to life. They've been diagnosed with cancer. It's so painful. Okay, last question. If you knew you were about to die next week, what message would you leave to the world?
I think the number one is that we're all connected. The care that we give to ourselves, we're giving to others around us. As women, sometimes we think we have to help everyone else before we help ourselves. It works the other way around. So that's the message I would leave.
I love that so much. And where people can find you?
So definitely check me out at my website, which is dranna.com. So check out my page. I have an insider. I'll give your audience my insider page. It's dranna.com/tribe. And I have some freebies that I just give to my insiders. So you guys can check those out and participate. And on social media at The Girlfriend Doctor. And definitely check out my podcast, The Girlfriend Doctor Show.
The Girlfriend Doctor Show. I love that. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Anna. And I hope you guys like it. All the links going to be down below in the description box. And thank you so much, Dr. Anna. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you too. Thanks for having me.